day, everyone. My topic for management advisory services for today is about operational budgeting. As you see in the illustration, I included a diagram how operational budget process, no, paano yung operational budget ginagawa. Well, before we proceed, we discuss the diagram. Let us discuss first what is budget. Budget is a detailed plan expressed in a quantitative terms kasi we are talking about here numbers that specifies how resources will be acquired and used during a specific period of time, while the budgeting is the process of preparing the budget. Take note, budget is different from budgeting. Budget, it is the detailed plan. It is the output of the budgeting process. Yung nakikita nyo sa taas, this diagram is the budgeting process. Take note that the budgeting process begins with the sales budget, then it follows the selling and administrative budget, the production budget, and the capital expenditure budgets. After those budgets are prepared, we can now immediately prepare the income statement budget, the cash budget, and the balance sheet budget. So take note, if we're going to prepare a budget, a detailed plan, no, of how are we going to acquire and use those um, figures, okay? The budgeting process shall begin or commence by determining the expected sales. Kaya nga, on the budgeting process, we begin by having the sales budget. What is the purpose or objective of budgeting system? Well, the budgeting system is intended for planning, facilitating communication and coordination, and allocating resources. Number 4, controlling profit and operation, and evaluating performance and providing incentives. Take note, using the budget plan that we have, we can identify how resources shall be utilized, how are we going to communicate our quotas, how are we going to allocate our resources, and how are we going to control our expenditures and particularly expenditures affecting profits. And then we can also evaluate the performance of each personnel or of the department using the budget. Objectives of budgeting is to find the most profitable direction which the operations can take. The second objective of budgeting is to develop in detail a balanced and coordinated program in that direction. And lastly, to assist in controlling the operation in the execution of the programs. Those are the three main objectives of the budgeting process. So, no, to understand more what budgeting is, I prepared two different illustrative examples. Okay, take note, once we prepare the budget, it is required that we have financial assumptions to consider. The financial assumptions will depend on the management naman yon. Okay, so first illustrative example or problem that I prepared is a very long problem because this requires how to compute the expected peso sales, the finished goods in units to be produced during the month, the budgeted raw cost the budgeted cost of raw materials to be used in production, the budgeted raw materials purchases cost, the budgeted direct labor cost, the variable overhead cost per direct labor hour, then the fixed overhead cost per direct labor hour, and the budgeted contribution margin, and including the budgeted cost of goods sold using the full costing method, and lastly determining the net profit before tax. Okay, so take note, no, eh, that the requirements are in accordance with the budgeting process. So let us read the problem. The following information has been gathered by the budget director Mahal Company, another outfit managed by the Lovers Company. The firm manufactures and sells only one product. The selling price during the coming month is expected to be prevailing price of 5 pesos per unit. So the the selling price is very important um, in the requirements provided. Second paragraph, expected sales during the month is a total of 75,000 units of finished goods. So that is our budgeted sales in units. Finished goods expected to be on hand at the beginning of the month, total 42,000 units. And then 20% of the total budgeted sales in units is expected to be the ending finished goods. Take note. Direct labor cost is 3 pesos per hour. The 3 pesos is per hour. And then, the direct labor required on every manufactured unit of finished product is only one-fourth of the total number, the total hour. Okay, meaning in every product, only 25% of the 60 minutes is around 15 minutes. Only 15 minutes is required to produce one unit. Take note. Factory overhead is applied to work in process on the basis of direct labor hours. Take note, direct labor hours po ang basis on the computation of the factory overhead. The variable factory expenses at the planned level of operation expected to amount to 30,000 pesos, and the fixed overhead is expected to amount to 96,000 pesos. Okay. The raw materials expected to be on hand at the beginning of the month total 5,000 gallons. Only one kind of raw materials is used to produce the finished goods. 1.5 gallons of raw materials are needed to manufacture each unit of finished product. Take note, ha? 1.5 gallons of raw materials are needed to manufacture each unit of finished product. Raw materials are expected to cost 18 centavos or 0.18 pesos per gallon during the coming month. Its prevailing cost. Raw materials are expected to be on hand at the end of the month, total 8,000 gallons. The variable and administrative selling expenses is 1 peso per unit. So let us begin computing the total expected sales based on the given information. Well, I already prepared the computations for that. Take note, the problem provided us that the expected sales for the month is 75,000 units, and the prevailing selling price for the month is 5 pesos per unit. So, in this case, to compute the expected sales or the total sales for the month, we have 375,000 pesos. That is simply multiplying 5 pesos to the total expected sales, which is clearly indicated on the problem. 75,000 multiplied by 5. Ganun lang po kasimple computin or hanapin yung expected sales. Okay? So, all you need to do is to determine what is the expected sales by the company and multiplying it to the prevailing selling price or the expected selling price of part of the particular unit or of the particular product. Letter B, the requirement was the compute the finished goods in units to be produced during the month. Take note, yung tinatanong is the finished goods to be produced during the month. Okay, so how are we going to compute that? Okay, based on the problem, the beginning units was 42,000 units of finished goods. And then we are expecting rather to have 75 units sales. So 42 and 75,000 unit sales. And then the ending units based on the problem says that 20% of the expected sales is the expected ending balance of finished goods. So, we computed 75,000 units because that's the expected sales multiplied by 20%, that is 15,000 units. So to compute the number of units to be produced during the month, we need to work it back by simply um, adding 75,000 expected sales plus the expected ending inventory minus the beginning units of finished goods. So, the expected number of units to be produced for the month is 48,000 units. Ganun lang po yung kasimple, no? All you need to do is to work it back, okay? Or sabi pa nga sa libro, to squeeze, no? Okay? Provide, using the given information, particularly on computing the number of units to required to be produced. Okay, so the answer for letter B is 48,000 units. Okay, the next requirement was, okay, the budgeted cost of raw materials to be used, okay, in production. The cost of raw materials to be used in the production. Take note, we are talking about raw materials here. So if there were 48,000 finished goods, okay, no, finished goods. Itong 48,000, ito yon. Ito po yon yung na-compute natin sa letter B. Ha? Take note. If there were 48,000 units required to be produced for the month, and each finished good requires, 1.5 raw materials or 1.5 gallon, okay, gallons of raw materials. So 48,000 multiplied by 1.5, meaning the raw materials, the total raw materials required or used for production of the 48,000 finished goods is 72,000 gallons. Because we are asked to compute for the cost, take note the cost per gallon is 0.18, no? That is 0.18. Okay. So, 72,000 multiplied by 0.18, the total cost of material used for producing the 48,000 finished goods is 12,960. That is simply computing 72,000 times 18. That is 12,960. Ganun lang siya kasimple. Take note, itong 48, binase lang natin sa finished goods inventory. Okay? I mean, finished goods required to be produced. Okay? Para ma-determine kung magkano yung cost of materials used for the production. Letter D. Okay, what is the requirement for letter D? Tignan po natin. The budgeted raw materials purchases cost. Take note, letter C and letter D is two different things because letter C refers to the cost of materials being used, while letter D, the cost of materials purchased. So, to compute for that, no, we need to determine how many materials were purchased. So, if raw materials purchased is being determined muna, we need the beginning raw materials and the ending materials, which is clearly provided in the problem. We have the 5,000 beginning raw materials and the 8,000 ending materials. Sir, saan po galing yung 72 raw materials used in production? Take note na compute po natin itong 72 galing dito sa taas sa letter C, which is 48,000 finished goods multiplied by 1.5 gallon. Kasi 1.5 gallon per 1 unit finished, okay, finished in the production. So that is 72. And then to compute for the raw materials purchased for the month, we need to squeeze or work it back, or work back by adding 72 and the 8,000 ending materials, then deducting the beginning raw material, so that we can now compute, we can now able to determine the number of gallons purchased for the said month. So we have 75,000 gallons of raw materials, no, purchased. However, the requirement was to compute the cost. If there were 75 raw materials purchased and each material cost for 18 pesos per gallon, I mean 0.18 pesos per gallon, the total cost of materials purchased is 13,500. Take note, C and D are two different concept kasi letter C pertains to the cost of materials used for production, while letter D refers to the cost of materials purchased. Okay? Cost of material purchased. Okay? Ano? Yon. Take note, and then the basis of my computation to determine the cost of materials used for production was the finished goods produced for the year. While in determining the cost of raw materials purchased, my basis were the raw materials inventory account. Okay? So that's it. Let's proceed to the next requirement of this particular problem. The next requirement of the said problem is to determine the budgeted direct labor cost. So we are required to compute the budgeted direct labor cost. Okay. So paano po natin nahanapin yung budgeted direct labor cost? Well, take note, the direct labor cost is 3 pesos per hour. The 3 pesos is a per hour cost. And take note that each unit produced, or each unit of finished product requires one-fourth of an hour. So how are we going to compute the number of hours? Okay, the number of hours, okay, used during the month. Take note that the number of produced units that we have is 48 units. Take note that we have 48 units. And then each unit, okay, requires only one-fourth of an hour. Question, ilan yung one-fourth of an hour? Take note that every hour, no? Every hour, has 60 minutes. And 25%, or the one-fourth of the 60 minutes of every hour is 15 minutes. Okay, so we have 15 minutes for each finished product. And then we have 48,000, okay, finished product produced for the period. If there were 15 minutes, for each product, and then there were 48 finished product produced for the period, for the month, we can say that we have how many minutes for the production of the 48 minutes? We have 720,000 total minutes. And if if the cost was based on hour, not on minutes, we need to determine how many hours were um were were incurred for the said month. So 720 divided by 60 minutes, kasi in every hour there were 60 minutes naman. Ibig sabihin, the total hours for the production of the 48,000 units is 12,000 hours. And because we have already determined the 12,000 total hours, we can now compute the total cost of direct labor, okay, for the said month. So we have 12,000 times 3, okay, times 3 pesos per hour, we have 36,000 cost of direct labor. So that's the cost of direct labor, okay, in the production, no, for the production, okay, for the production lang ng 48,000 units. Okay, take note, we only have 36,000 cost of direct labor for the said period. Okay, so how about on letter F? No, letter F. Okay, letter F. The requirement for letter F was to compute for the variable overhead cost per direct labor hour. So take note, the total budgeted cost, total variable cost was 30,000 pesos, and then the 12,000 total hours for the period. Okay, we can able to compute our variable cost per unit or per hour, which is 2.5, by simply dividing 30,000 pesos over 12,000 total hours. Kasi anyways, sinabi naman sa problem that the factory overhead is applied based on direct labor hour. Take note, the direct labor hour for the month was 12,000 hours. So we have 2.5 um, variable cost per hour. Okay. How about for the fixed cost, the fixed factory overhead per hour. Kasi yun din naman yung requirement for letter G, wherein the factory overhead is applied based on direct labor hours. So remember, the total fixed cost, okay, based on the planned sales is 96,000, then the total hours is 12,000 for the month. By dividing 96,000 to 12,000, the fixed cost per unit, per hour I mean. So let's palitan po natin to, no? Per hour is 8,000, 8 pesos fi, fixed cost per hour. Then, the next requirement was to compute the contribution margin. Because the problem is silent as to compute for the contribution margin, no, all variable costs shall be deducted to the total sales. If the total sales is 375, we're in na compute po natin yan kanina on letter A requirement. So that is 375 minus the variable cost of direct material, no? We have 75. Sir, saan po galing itong 75,000? Ito pong 75,000 does not is not pertaining to the direct materials naman to, no? If there were 75,000, parang may 75, computin nga natin, parang may mali yata sa formula. 75,000 units were sold, multiply by 1.5 muna kasi each each product requires a 1.5 gallons multiply by 0.18. So yun po dapat yung formula natin kasi there were 75,000 units, tama, sold, and then each unit requires 1.5 gallon, okay? Each unit requires 1.5 gallon, okay? So, the total number of gallons, okay, required for the production of the 75,000. Okay, 75,000 kasi yung naibenta po natin, multiply by 0.18, that is the cost per gallon. So, the production was, the direct materials, okay, used to, I mean, cost of direct materials related to the number of sales, no? Which is, take note, our sales was 75,000. Okay? So that is how much? That is 20,250. For direct labor naman, okay, take note, we have 75,000 units produced and each production requires 15 minutes. Ayun, yun po yung formula natin. So that's why, okay, 75,000 units multiplied by 15 minutes, then we divide it to 60 minutes para malahanap kung ilang hours talaga ang ginamit for the production, for the total number of units sold. Kasi sold po tayo, ha. Okay? Baka nagkakaroon ng confusion. Bakit, sir, sa previous requirement we use the 48,000 and then in the computation of the contribution margin we use the number of units sold, actual units sold. Take note, the requirement, the previous requirements requires lang na sa atin kung magkano yung cost pertaining to the production. Ngayon, sa letter H, we are required to compute the cost of direct material, direct labor, the variable factory overhead, including the variable selling and administrative expenses related to the number of units sold naman. Take note, once we compute for the contribution margin, we are not we are not our computation is not based on the number of units produced. Instead, we are basing our computation on the number of units sold. So that's why 75,000 units po yung ginagamit ko ngayon because we are required to compute for the contribution margin. So 75,000 multiplied by 15 minutes and then I divided it by 60 minutes to compute or to determine the total number of hours, no, related to the 75,000 units sold. then multiply it by 3 so that we can able to determine the total costs related to the 75,000 units sold. So the direct labor related to 75,000 units sold is 56,250. And then same with variable factory overhead, yung pinalitan ko lang is yung cost of the factory overhead, which is 2 pesos. So that is 37,500. While the variable selling and administrative expenses, take note the problem provided us that its assumption was based on not on ours but based on the number of unit, no, based on number of units, okay, sold, no. So the variable and administrative selling expenses is 1 peso per unit, so that is 1 peso multiplied by 75,000 units. So the number of the total variable, what we call this, selling and administrative expenses is 75,000. And then to determine the contribution margin, we simply deduct all variable costs to the total say to the sales that we have. So the answer would be 186,000 pesos. So, ganun lang po kasimple, guys. Okay, take note, wag po tayong ma-confuse bakit 48,000 yung ginamit sa in determining the cost of production. I mean, the cost of production, the cost of direct labor in the production. Kasi, and then sa computation ng contribution margin. Take note, we are talking on the previous requirements about production. In letter H, we're talking about the sale. The sale already. So, ganun po yun. And then, letter I, simply the cost of goods sold, yun pa rin. We are going to use the direct materials. Ito yung 20,250, the direct labor, and the variable factory overhead. Okay, kasi take note, absorption costing and variable costing only differs on the fixed cost. Okay, okay, the fixed cost, the fixed manufacturing cost. Okay, so considering that there were 75,000 units produced over, then multiply by 15 minutes over 60 minutes to determine the hours, okay, and then each hour requires 8 pesos per hour. So the total number of units, I mean the total number of fixed cost related to the 75,000 units sold is 150,000. So the total cost of goods sold is 264,000. If you have other way to compute for the cost of goods sold under the full costing method, you may do so, no? Kung yung gusto mo yung mahaba-haba from raw materials down to finished goods, you can do it naman. Anyways, we will come up with the same result. Okay? Ito, pinadali na lang. Okay? So, letter J, the requirement was to determine the net income before tax. Simply, the 375 sales, the cost of goods sold that we have computed using item letter I, we have 264. By deducting 375 to 264, our gross profit is 111. Then our expenses, this expenses is related to the variable selling and administrative expenses of 75,000. So 111 minus 75,000, the net income before tax is 36,000. If you're going to observe, no, from letter A to letter J, our computation initially started from determining the sales, then later on determining the cost of production, then later on we have able to determine the cost of sales, and then later on we have able to compute for the other operational expenses, and then at the end point we were able to compute the net income or the income statement, the budgeted income statement. Ganun lang po yun, no? Parang sinunod lang po natin yung lahat ng requirements, pero using the requirements given, we have already followed the budget process. Okay? Hopefully, naintindihan nyo po yung computation. Take note, itong topic na to is pinaka-simple sa lahat. Okay? Another illustration that I prepared is, kasi related to this, is yung mga cash collection and cash payment. So, I prepare one problem for that. However, whether it is collection or sales, we will have the same approach naman. Okay? So, let's begin. No, how did I um, compute the requirements? No, take note, the following are the sales during the year, no? Oh, pero selected lang from January to February. Okay, these were the sales, no? Okay, the sales. They have 400, 500, 750, 600, and 450 from January to June na mga buwan. And then, there is an assumption provided in the problem saying that the sales in each month comprise of 30% cash and 70% on account. So, ibig sabihin, in every sale, 30% nun is cash sales and 70% of that is a on-account sales. And then, sabi rin sa problem, 30% of the receivable is collected in the month of sales. Take note, 30% of the receivable is collected in the month of sale, then 50% a month after the month of sales. So, ibig sabihin, kung ngayon na ibenta on account, 30% non binayaran, then 50% on the succeeding month. And then the remainder is after the latter. Ibig sabihin, after the collection of 50%, okay, of the succeeding month, the remainder will be collected. So, ibig sabihin, 2 months after from the month of sale. So, we are required to compute the following. Una, the total cash received on the month of April. Take note, the term was total cash received. Tinatanong yung total cash received. Pag sinabi pong total cash received lang, total cash received, ibig sabihin, the total cash received from the sale, whether on account sale or on cash sales. So, to compute that, una kunin po natin yung 400,000 sales, and then take note on the month of sale, because this is April, 30% of which is being collected. So 400 multiplied by 30%, so we have 120. And then the remainder, the 70%, that is 400 multiplied by 70%, that is 280. That is an on-account sale or the accounts receivable. And then, magkano po ba na-collect from the AR? If the if the assumption was 30% of the AR will be collected on the months of sale, so that is 280 multiplied by 30%. Kasi 30% daw yung mako-collect on the month of sale, so we have collected from the accounts receivable around 84,000. So the total cash received is the sum of the cash sales, no? Kasi sa April, meron po tayong na-receive na 30% of cash related to that total sales, and the collection from the AR of 30%, which is 84,000. So the total cash sales related to April sales, April pa lang na sales, is 204,000. But it's not yet the answer for the said requirement. Because take note, on the sales on March and February, meron pa po tayong makokolek. Kasi 50% a month after the sale will be of the receivable of the on-account sale will be collected. Then the remainder will be collected 2 months after. Take note, March is the month before April. So, nung March, meron pong 750,000 na sales. Pero, yung 30% noon, naka-sales, na-collect na po na-collect na po yun nung March. Kaya hindi po natin siya i-include as total cash received for the month of April. Kasi hindi naman po siya na-collect sa April. Sa March po yun na-collect na cash sales. And take note, from the March sale, 70% of the 750,000 is on account. However, yung mako-collect mo lang from the 525, which is equivalent to 70% of the total sales, which is on account, okay, 50% lang naman po ang mako-collect doon. So that's why we multiply 522 times 0.5 because that is on April. That is the month after the sale. So that is 50% lang makokollect. 262,500 po ang cash received natin. Okay, related to the March sales. How about on February? Take note on February, this is kung February yan na sales, then April na ngayon, 2 months na nagdaan. So, yung cash sales related to the 500,000 is not collected on the month of April, so we will disregard that. And then 70% of the 500 was 350. However, yung mako-collect na lang natin is yung remainder. Kasi nung February, na-collect po natin yung 30% nun. Then, on March, na-collect yung 50%. So, that is total 80% na. So, magkano na lang yung natitira? That is 20% of 350,000. So, that's why the total cash received related to the um, on-account sales of February is 70,000. So, the total cash received for the month of April is 536,500. Take note ha, kasi yung sentence kasi na requirement total cash received on the month of April. So, ibig sabihin, we are now going to consider the other collections, no? Kahit sa ibang buwan po siya na sale. Unless the statement there, sinabi, the total cash received, related to the sale of for the month of April. Pag sinabi yun, no, sa problem na ganon, well, our answer will be 204,000 kasi yung tinatanong lang naman, the total cash received related to April na sale. Pero kasi yung tinatanong was total cash received on the month of sale, no? Okay, intindihin po natin yan ng mabuti. Okay, another requirement was the balance of accounts receivable as of June 2020. So, June naman. Okay, sa June. Take note, okay, sabihin natin, okay, magkano po ba yung June? We have 450. Nung June, we have 450 sale, and then 70% of the 450 is on account. Tanong natin, from the 315,000 na on account sale, magkano na po yata ang na-collect? Because this is, we are talking about for the month of June. On the month of sale, 30% lang ang na-collect. So, 315 multiplied by 30%, that is 94,500. So, 94,500 lang ang na-collect related to the on-account sale for the month of June. So, the remaining balance related to the on-account sale for the month of June is 315 minus 94,500. The remaining balance, okay, is 220,500. However, we need to also consider the previous months. Kasi baka meron pang mga balance yon. Okay. For the month of May, we have the sale of 600,000. Okay. For the month of May, we have 600,000 na sales. This is sales, ha? This is total sales. And then, we have 70% from the 600,000 yung on account. Pero this is from May, no? From May. Kung May yon, no, May. Take note for the month of May, okay, na sales, 420,000 multiply. Take note, na-collect na po natin yung 30% niyan. Na-collect na po natin yung 30%. Bakit? Kasi on the month of sale, we have already collected the 30% of that on account. And then on the month of June, because that is the succeeding month or a month after the sale, we have already collected 50%. So, a total of 80% na po ang na-collect natin. So, sabihin na lang natin 80% na po ang na-collect natin. So, ibig sabihin, we have already collected in total 336,000 related to the May na on-account sale. So, magkano na lang po yung natitirang i-collect natin? We have 420 minus 336. Sir, bakit hindi nyo po sinama si month of April? O, sige, try po natin isama si April, no? Si April, take note, for the month of April, we have 400,000 sales, and then from the 400,000, 70% of which is on AR. And then, for the month of June, magkano na po ba ang collection natin? Total collection, no? From the 280,000 na sales. Take note, from the 280,000, nung April pa lang, nakakollect na po tayo ng 30%. Nung nag-May, nakakollect po tayo ng 50%. At ngayong June, which is 2 months after the month of sale, we have already collected the remainder of 20%. So, 280 na po ang na-collect natin. Kaya 280 minus 280, zero na po ang balance from the on-account sale of April. So, that's why the remaining balance is to 304,500. Ito po yung remaining balance of AR. Pero, kung meron pong mas simple, okay, if you are able already to determine, no, madali ka nang makadetermine, ito po ang pinakasimpleng pag-compute, no. Take note, the on account is 315 on the month of June, and take note, 70% pa ang uncollected. Bakit 70%? Kasi from the 100%, 30% of which is already collected. Kasi sa buwan ng June, nakakollect po tayo ng 30%. Kaya 315 multiplied by 70%, that is 220,500 na lang ang remaining balance. Okay? And then for the month of June, we have 420,000, and then 20% na lang ang uncollected. Bakit uncollected 20%? Kasi 30% nung month of May, then 50% on the month of June. So, by the end of June, 20% na lang ang hindi nako-collect. Kaya 20% of 420, 84,000. So, the answer is 304,500. And then the last requirement is the total cash collected from accounts receivable for the month of April. Oh, ito naman, no. Iba po siya sa letter A kasi yung ginawa pong sentence is magkano po yung cash collected from accounts receivable. Okay? Ibig sabihin, sa total accounts receivable na meron po tayo, okay, ilan po ang na-collect natin for the month of April? As of month of April to. As of month of April. Wag po natin as of month of April. So, pag ganun po ang tanong, well, our answer will be itong column na to, no? Kasi ito po yung na-collect natin. 84,262, 570,000, which is a total sum of 416,500. Ayun. Yun po, ha. Bantayin po natin yung English or English construction ng ganito kasi dito minsan nagkakamali yung nagsasagot. Okay? So, how about payments? Well, if payments naman, no, if this is an accounts payable, same treatment. Okay, palitan lang po natin on account, no. Hindi, what I mean, no, same process, not same treatment, no. Kasi depende rin naman po tayo sa financial assumption na binigay ng problem. Okay? So far, yun lang naman ang mga importanteng bagay na dapat i-discuss related to operational budgeting. Okay? Kasi yung iba namang, yung ibang topics, no, related to CAPEX or part of capital budgeting process naman nun. Okay? So, hopefully you were able to understand my illustrations related to operational budgeting. That ends my discussion. Thank you and God bless everyone. Keep safe, then advance Merry Christmas.